What would you do if, 5 minutes before your wedding, you learned your fiancé had spent the night with someone else? The sunlight streaming through the stained glass windows of St. Helena's Cathedral painted the marble aisle in fractured shades of gold, blue, and crimson. Outside, the spring air was crisp, scented faintly with blooming magnolias. Inside, guests were settling into polished oak pews, their voices low with excitement. Today was meant to be the happiest day of Sophia Lane's life. In the bridal suite, just off the nave, Sophia stood in front of an ornate mirror, her fingertips brushing the delicate lace of her gown. The dress had been flown in from Paris, a custom creation of hand-stitched pearls and intricate embroidery that took 6 months to make. It fit her like a second skin, the sweeping train cascading behind her like a river of ivory. She should have been radiant with joy. Instead, her stomach felt strangely hollow. Lily, her maid of honor and best friend since childhood, fussed with the veil. "Soph, you look like a dream. Seriously, you're glowing." Sophia forced a small smile. "That's the makeup talking." "You're just nervous," Lily reassured her. "It's your wedding day. Nerves are normal." Nerves, yes, but this was something else. A strange tightness in her chest she couldn't shake. Still, she told herself it was nothing, just pre-wedding jitters. Her thoughts drifted to Ethan Reynolds, the man waiting for her at the altar. The heir to Reynolds International was everything society adored, tall, handsome, with the kind of smile that made people lean closer. They'd met 2 years earlier at a charity gala she'd been coordinating. He had walked in wearing a perfectly tailored navy suit, and from across the room, his gaze had locked with hers. It was a cliché, love at first sight, but for Sophia, it had felt real. Their whirlwind romance had been a blur of glamorous dinners, weekends in Lake Como, and whispered promises under starry skies. When Ethan proposed at the top of the Eiffel Tower, she'd said yes without hesitation. A soft knock at the door broke her thoughts. Lily stepped out to check on the flowers, leaving Sophia alone. The quiet felt heavier now, almost oppressive. Her phone buzzed on the vanity. Unknown number. She hesitated before answering. "Hello?" A woman's voice came through, low and deliberate. "You don't know me, but you should. My name's Olivia, and I think you deserve to know the truth about your fiancé." Sophia's grip on the phone tightened. "What are you talking about?" "He spent last night in my hotel room," Olivia said. "Told me he was marrying the wrong woman. Told me he was going to call it off with you." The room tilted slightly. "That's a lie." "Oh, I can prove it," Olivia replied. "I'm outside the cathedral right now. Want me to bring you the evidence?" Before Sophia could respond, the line went dead. Her mind raced. She told herself it could be a prank, a cruel joke. But a sharp knock on the door made her turn. Daniel Carter, Ethan's best man and oldest friend, stood there, his usual easy smile nowhere in sight. "We need to talk," he said quietly, closing the door behind him. Sophia's voice was tight. "If this is about Ethan." "It is." He reached into his jacket and pulled out an envelope. "I didn't want to do this, but you need to see." Inside were photographs, grainy but clear enough to make her stomach drop. Ethan, in the lobby of the Marlowe Hotel, arm wrapped around a woman with striking auburn hair. The timestamp, last night. "I confronted him this morning," Daniel said. "Told him to be honest with you." He laughed. "Said you'd forgive him because you need him more than he needs you." Sophia felt a cold, slow burn in her chest. The bells outside began to chime, signaling the ceremony was about to begin. Daniel's voice softened. "You don't have to do this." She slipped the photos into her bouquet. "I'm walking down that aisle," she said. Daniel frowned. "Soph? Not for the reason he thinks." Moments later, the grand cathedral doors swung open. Guests rose to their feet. Ethan stood at the altar, smiling like a man who thought he'd already won. Sophia took her first step down the aisle, serene on the outside but burning inside. This wasn't going to be a wedding. It was going to be an execution. The organ swelled, filling St. Helena's Cathedral with a deep, resonant melody. Sophia's heels clicked softly on the marble as she walked down the aisle, each step measured and deliberate. Her veil floated gently behind her, catching the fractured light from the stained glass windows. To the guests, she was a vision of grace. Only Daniel, standing at the altar beside Ethan, knew the truth, that the photographs hidden in her bouquet were loaded weapons. Her father, tall and composed, walked beside her. "You look beautiful, sweetheart," he whispered, his voice carrying a note of pride. Sophia smiled faintly, but her mind was locked on Ethan. He stood at the altar in his tailored black tuxedo, hair perfectly styled, smile wide and confident. He looked like the perfect groom, if you didn't know what he'd done. They reached the altar. Her father placed her hand into Ethan's. His grip was warm, steady, familiar. "You're breathtaking," he murmured. Sophia's lips curved, but her eyes held no warmth. "Am I?" the officiant began, his deep voice rolling over the congregation. "Dearly beloved, we are gathered here today." Sophia barely heard the words. Her gaze was locked on Ethan, searching for the smallest crack in his polished mask. He gave her nothing but that same practiced charm. Ethan went first with his vows. "From the moment I met you, Sophia, I knew you were the one. You've brought light into my life, steadiness to my chaos. I promise to honor you, to cherish you, to protect you for all my days." His voice carried with sincerity so smooth it almost convinced her he believed it. The crowd sighed, some guests dabbing at their eyes. Then it was her turn. Sophia took a slow breath. "Ethan, you've taught me many things in our time together. About love, about trust." Her voice remained even, but a sharp edge crept into her tone. "And about betrayal." A murmur ran through the pews. "You've shown me," she continued, "just how far someone will go to protect themselves, even if it means destroying someone who trusted them completely." Ethan's smile faltered for the first time. "Sophia?" he began, his voice low. She reached into her bouquet and pulled out the envelope. "This," she said, holding the photographs high enough for the first few rows to see, "is where my fiancé spent last night." The gasps came fast and loud. Ethan's voice sharpened. "What is this? Some kind of joke?" Daniel stepped forward, his voice carrying over the murmurs. "It's not a joke, I took those pictures." Shock rippled through the congregation. Guests craned their necks to see the evidence, whispers flaring like sparks. Sophia turned back to Ethan, her eyes cold. "You thought I'd never find out, or maybe you thought I'd forgive you. Either way, you were wrong." She placed the bouquet down on the altar, the photographs still visible, and took a step back. "This wedding is over." Chaos erupted, whispers turning into outright talking, phones being raised to capture the moment. The organist faltered, the music dying mid-note. Sophia turned to walk away, but the sound of heels clicking against the marble stopped her. The cathedral doors had swung open again. Olivia strode in, auburn hair shining under the high lights, her emerald dress hugging every curve. She smiled, but it was a smile sharpened into a weapon. "Don't stop on my account," Olivia said, her voice carrying to every corner of the cathedral. "Ethan, you didn't tell her everything, did you?" Sophia faced her. "What are you talking about?" Olivia's gaze swept the crowd before settling on a young woman in the second row. A pretty brunette in a pale pink dress who was suddenly paling by the second. "This is Madeline, Ethan's assistant, and another one of his conquests." A gasp rose from the guests. Madeline's eyes darted toward Ethan, pleading for help, but he looked away. Olivia continued, her voice almost playful. "Last night wasn't the first time, wasn't the second, wasn't even the fifth. He's been very busy for a man about to get married." "Enough," Ethan snapped, his voice cracking under the strain. Olivia ignored him. "You should also know, Sophia, that he's been hiding something bigger than infidelity. Something that's going to walk through that door in just a moment." The crowd turned toward the entrance. The massive wooden doors began to open again, the sunlight spilling across the aisle. A tall figure stepped inside. The tall figure stepped fully into the light, his polished black shoes clicking against the marble. His tailored charcoal suit fit him like armor, and the way he carried himself radiated authority. The chatter in the cathedral died into tense silence. Sophia didn't recognize him, but Ethan's reaction told her everything. His smile vanished, replaced by a tight line and a flicker of unease. The man's voice was calm, deep, and measured. "Forgive my interruption. My name is Adrian Cross, CEO of Crosswell Industries, and I have information the bride should hear before this ceremony continues." Ethan's jaw clenched. "You're not welcome here, Adrian." Adrian ignored him, his gaze fixed on Sophia. 3 months ago, your mother's boutique went bankrupt. You were told it was because of rising costs and a bad lease. But that's not the whole story. The truth is, Ethan made it happen. A murmur rippled through the congregation. Sophia's pulse hammered in her ears. "That's absurd. Why would he? Because, Adrian cut in smoothly, your mother's store sits on prime real estate. Land Richard Reynolds, Ethan's father, wanted, and when your mother wouldn't sell, Ethan made sure she didn't have a choice. Ethan stepped toward Adrian, voice low and dangerous. Watch yourself. Adrian smirked. Oh, I'm just getting started. He turned back to Sophia. Ethan convinced your mother's supplier to pull out. That supplier was bought by a shell company owned by Ethan. Within a week, your mother had no product, no revenue, and the bank refused her loan. The guests were whispering again, their faces shifting from shock to outrage. Sophia stared at Ethan. You destroyed my family's business for a piece of property? Ethan's lips tightened. It wasn't personal. It was business. My father. Your father wanted it for the merger, Adrian interrupted. Reynolds International is collapsing, Sophia. The only way to save it is to merge with a larger corporation. But the contract has a very specific condition. Ethan must be married to a woman with a spotless public image before the deal can close. It was like the oxygen in the room had been sucked out. Olivia let out a soft, cruel laugh. So that's why you picked her. Not because you loved her. Because she was marketable. Daniel stepped forward, his voice hard. He told me she was a good investment. I thought he was joking. Now I see he wasn't. Sophia felt her hands tremble, not with weakness but with rage. Every romantic memory now felt staged, rehearsed, part of some calculated play. Adrian took a step closer, lowering his voice. I can help you. You deserve justice. I can give you the means to expose him, destroy the Reynolds name, and clear your family's debt. Sophia's eyes narrowed. And why would you help me? A humorless smile touched his lips. Because Ethan Reynolds is my competition, and because watching him burn would be satisfying. Before she could answer, a new voice echoed from the back of the cathedral. That's enough, Adrian. The air shifted. Heads turned. A tall, silver-haired man in a navy overcoat strode down the aisle, each step measured and confident. His presence commanded silence before he even spoke again. Ethan straightened. Father? Richard Reynolds didn't look at his son. His eyes locked onto Sophia, sharp and assessing. You must be Miss Lane. I've heard a great deal about you. Sophia's voice was cool. Pity I can't say the same. Richard stopped a few feet from her. You're a smart woman. Smarter than these men give you credit for. I can offer you something neither of them can. Power, protection, and a future at the head of Reynolds International. Adrian scoffed. She doesn't want your poisoned crown. Richard glanced at him with disdain. You want to use her to destroy me. I want to make her untouchable. Sophia's hands curled into fists. Untouchable? You destroyed my mother's life. That's not protection. Richard's expression didn't change. Collateral damage. In business, it happens. But family is different. Her brow furrowed. We're not family. Richard's lips curved slightly. Aren't we? David Lane isn't your real father. Gasps exploded from the crowd. Sophia's breath caught. What? I am, Richard said, his voice steady and cold. You're my daughter, which means marrying my son would have been a scandal that destroyed us both. The shock hit like ice water. Somewhere behind her, Olivia let out a low whistle. Well, this just got interesting. Sophia's mind spun. If Richard was telling the truth, her entire life had been built on a lie. She swallowed hard, her voice tight. And if I don't believe you? Richard's gaze sharpened. Then the man about to walk through those doors will tell you his version of the truth. Every head turned toward the entrance again. The heavy wooden doors began to swing open. The massive cathedral doors creaked open, their weight groaning against ancient hinges. Sunlight spilled in, framing the man who stepped inside. He was tall, broad-shouldered, dressed in a dark three-piece suit that fit like it had been cut for him alone. His presence was a cold wind through the room, steady, deliberate, and dangerous. Richard's eyes narrowed instantly. Nathan Cole's lips curved into something between a smirk and a snarl. Miss me, Richard? He strode forward, ignoring the guests' murmurs. His gaze locked on Sophia, and for a moment, the noise of the cathedral faded. Don't listen to him, Nathan said, his voice resonant. Because I'm your real father. Gasps erupted like a wave. Sophia blinked, unsure if she'd heard him correctly. What? Nathan reached into his jacket and pulled out a sealed envelope. DNA results. Yours and mine. I've kept this for years, waiting for the right moment. Richard scoffed. Fabricated. Nathan's been hiding in the shadows for decades, trying to worm his way back into power. Nathan's gaze didn't waver from Sophia. 25 years ago, your mother and I were together. Before she married David. Before Richard even entered the picture. When she found out she was pregnant, Richard made her a deal. Marry David, pretend the child was his, and keep me out of the picture. In exchange, he'd keep her safe from people who wanted her dead. Sophia's heart pounded. Why would anyone want her dead? Because of who she used to work for, Nathan said. But we'll get to that. He took another step closer. What matters now is that you're the rightful heir to Reynolds International. Not Ethan. You. And Richard has been hiding that fact, because if it got out, you'd inherit controlling shares in the company immediately. The crowd buzzed, the revelation rippling through them. Richard's voice cut through the whispers, sharp as broken glass. Sophia, you can't believe a word he says. Nathan would burn this family to the ground if it meant hurting me. Nathan's smile turned cold. You mean telling her the truth? Yeah, I would. Sophia glanced between them, her mind spinning. Two powerful men claiming her as their daughter, both with motives steeped in business, power, and revenge. Before she could speak, a voice rang out from the back of the cathedral. Both of you. Enough. All heads turned as a woman stepped inside, the crimson of her dress a striking contrast against the muted tones of the cathedral. Her heels clicked sharply as she walked down the aisle, every eye following her. Margaret Lane, Sophia's mother. Richard's expression flickered with something like caution. Nathan's smirk faded entirely. Margaret stopped in the aisle, her gaze sweeping over both men. You've told enough lies for a lifetime, and now you're dragging my daughter into them. Sophia felt her breath catch. Mom, what's going on? Margaret's eyes softened when they met her daughter's. The truth, the real truth, and it's not what either of them just told you. Nathan bristled. Margaret, don't. She cut him off sharply. And you, she turned to Richard, stop pretending you're some noble protector. You're both using her. Sophia's pulse raced. If neither of them is my father, then who is? Margaret's gaze lingered on her for a moment before she spoke. Before I married David, before either of these men, I worked for someone else, someone far more dangerous. His name was Alexander Voss. A ripple of recognition passed through the crowd. Even Adrian, standing near the altar, straightened slightly. Sophia's voice was barely a whisper. Voss, as in Voss Holdings? Margaret nodded. Yes, Alexander was powerful, ruthless, and he's your father. Gasps erupted again. Some guests leaned forward, others exchanged stunned glances. Richard's jaw tightened. Nathan's lips pressed into a thin line. Sophia felt dizzy. Why didn't you tell me? Margaret's expression hardened. Because I was trying to protect you. The moment people knew who you really were, you'd have a target on your back. And now? She glanced toward the entrance. Now they know. The cathedral doors opened yet again. A tall man in a black suit walked in, his dark eyes sweeping the room like a predator surveying prey. His presence was electric, controlled, confident, and undeniably dangerous. Margaret's voice was low, tense. Victor Hale. Victor's mouth curved into a faint smile. Margaret, always dramatic. His gaze shifted to Sophia. And you're even more interesting than I imagined. Sophia straightened. I'm not yours to claim, Victor chuckled. Not yet, but you will be, because you're standing in the middle of a war you don't even understand, and I'm the only one who can make sure you survive it. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a black envelope, tossing it onto the marble at her feet. Inside, Victor said, is the truth about your family. Open it, and you'll know why everyone in this room wants a piece of you. Sophia stared at the envelope, her pulse pounding in her ears. The black envelope lay on the marble like a snake coiled and waiting. Sophia's fingers itched to reach for it, but her mother's voice cut through the silence. Don't open it, Sophia. Victor smiled faintly. Listen to her if you want to stay in the dark for the rest of your life. Margaret stepped forward, her crimson dress swaying with each measured step. That envelope is a trap. He's been circling since Alexander disappeared, waiting for a chance to get his claws into you. Victor tilted his head, his eyes still on Sophia. Your mother's been hiding you for 28 years. Doesn't it bother you to wonder why? Sophia's breath was shallow. She bent down, fingers brushing the heavy paper. It was colder than she expected. I'll decide for myself, she said quietly. The sound of the flap tearing open seemed deafening in the hushed cathedral. She pulled out a single photograph, old and worn at the edges. Her heart stumbled in her chest. It showed a younger Alexander Voss, standing on the steps of a private jet. Beside him was Margaret, years younger but unmistakable. And between them was a little girl, no older than 3, with dark eyes and a faint birthmark near her jaw. Sophia's hand trembled. The child looked like her, but it wasn't her. Her name, Victor said softly, is Serafina Voss, your half-sister, Alexander's firstborn. A murmur rippled through the guests. I didn't know, Sophia began. Of course you didn't, Victor said. She vanished years ago. Everyone thought she was dead. But she's alive, and she is the rightful heir to everything your father built. Richard's voice cut in sharply. If that's true, why bring it up now? Why involve Sophia at all? Victor's gaze shifted briefly toward him. Because Serafina doesn't want the throne. She's disappeared, hiding from the predators circling her inheritance. But that leaves a vacuum, a dangerous one, unless someone else with Voss blood steps in. Nathan's eyes narrowed. And you expect her to step in under your control? Victor smiled like a man who'd already won. Not control. Guidance. She has the bloodline, but she's untested. I can make her untouchable. Sophia's voice was ice. You mean you can make me your pawn? Adrian spoke from near the altar. Translation, he gets the empire, you get the illusion of power. Victor ignored him, his eyes still locked on Sophia. Or you can walk out of here and watch as every name on that list, he nodded toward the envelope, tears each other apart until someone comes for you. And they will. Margaret's voice rose. Or you can walk away from all of this. You can still have a life that's yours, Sophia. You don't have to inherit Alexander's war. Sophia's gaze swept over the faces before her. Richard, Nathan, Victor, Adrian, even her mother. All of them wanted something from her. None of them offered freedom. Her voice was steady. You all think I have to pick a side, but you're wrong. I'm not choosing any of you. Victor's eyes darkened. That's a dangerous choice. Sophia took a slow step forward. No, the dangerous choice is letting any of you dictate my life. Richard's voice was low, warning. You don't understand the stakes here. If you're not under someone's protection, you're a target. Sophia's lips curved into a small, cold smile. Then maybe it's time to stop being the hunted. The murmurs swelled. Olivia, still leaning against a pew, smirked. Oh, I like where this is going. Sophia turned to face the crowd. My father's empire may have been built on lies and blood, but it's mine to decide what to do with. Not theirs. Victor took a step toward her. And how do you plan to survive that decision? Sophia reached into the hidden pocket of her gown and pulled out a small silver flash drive. The polished metal caught the light. My mother gave me this on my 18th birthday, she said. She told me not to open it unless I had no other choice. Margaret's voice was urgent. Sophia? Sophia plugged the drive into Adrian's tablet, which was still resting on the podium. A single encrypted file appeared on the screen, labeled in stark, simple letters, the list. The guests leaned forward, drawn in despite themselves. Sophia tapped the file. Names began to scroll. Richard Reynolds, Nathan Cole, Adrian Cross. Victor Hale, Ethan Reynolds. Gasps echoed through the cathedral. Every name was followed by one word in red, target. Sophia's voice was almost a whisper. This is a kill list. Victor's smile vanished. Richard's jaw tightened. Nathan's eyes flicked briefly to the exits. Before anyone could speak, the cathedral's lights went out. Darkness swallowed the cathedral. Gasps and shouts rippled through the crowd, followed by the rustle of silk and the scrape of shoes against marble. Somewhere near the back, a chair clattered to the floor. Sophia froze in place, her fingers still resting on the edge of Adrian's tablet. The list glowed faintly on the screen, its crimson target marks casting an eerie light onto her face. Don't move, a man's voice barked from somewhere in the crowd. A beam of light cut through the darkness, a phone flashlight sweeping across the pews. More lights joined it, shaky beams revealing anxious faces. Margaret's voice was sharp. Sophia, get away from the podium. Before she could move, the emergency generators kicked in. The cathedral lights flickered, buzzing faintly, then steadied into a cold, sterile glow. Adrian's tablet was still connected to the projector, the list looming large above the altar. Dozens of names, dozens of powerful enemies. Victor stepped forward slowly, his gaze locked on the screen. Well, Alexander didn't leave much to the imagination, did he? Richard's voice was cold steel. If this list is real, every name on it will see you as a threat, Sophia, and they will come for you. Elias Voss, silent until now, emerged from the shadows of the side aisle. His voice was low, almost conversational. Or, she could use it, make them turn on each other. That's what Alexander would have done. Nathan shook his head. She's not Alexander, and using that list means inheriting every one of his enemies. Sophia's eyes moved from face to face. Seems like I already have. Victor's lips curved faintly. Not entirely. You still have a choice, destroy it or make it the foundation of your power. Margaret stepped closer to her daughter. Destroy it. Walk away from this madness before it kills you. Sophia didn't answer. Her mind was racing. The list wasn't just a threat, it was leverage. And leverage was power. Adrian leaned in, his voice low. If you keep it, you'll need allies. I can help you make the right ones. Richard's tone was sharp. The only safe place for her is under my protection. Nathan's voice was equally hard. Over my dead body. Sophia raised her hand, silencing them all. Every one of you wants me to pick a side, but I'm done playing pieces in your game. Elias took a step toward her. Then make your own game. Use the list, and you'll have every person on it scrambling to please you instead of plotting against you. Victor chuckled darkly. Unless one of them decides it's easier to kill you. A sudden sound cut through the tension. The heavy creak of the cathedral's main doors swinging open. Every head turned. A lone figure stood framed in the doorway. The silhouette was tall, feminine, and utterly still. The woman stepped forward, the click of her heels echoing in the quiet. She wore a tailored black coat, her dark hair pulled into a sleek knot. As she moved closer, the harsh lights revealed a face that could have been Sophia's, if a few years older. Same eyes, same bone structure, same faint birthmark near the jaw. Sophia's breath caught. Serafina? The woman's lips curved into a small, knowing smile. Hello, little sister? Gasps spread through the guests like wildfire. Victor's eyes narrowed. Well, the prodigal heir returns. Serafina's gaze flicked briefly to him, then back to Sophia. I see you found the list. Sophia nodded slowly. And I see you're not dead. Serafina's smile didn't falter. Far from it. But if you think you understand what you're holding, you don't. That list isn't just a death sentence, it's a map. Every name on it owes something to our father. Money, favors, secrets. Used correctly, they're not your enemies. They're your soldiers. Elias crossed his arms. Or they're the people who'll slit her throat the moment she lets her guard down. Serafina ignored him. You have two choices, Sophia. Give me the list and I'll take the war off your hands. Or keep it, and I'll have no choice but to take it from you. Sophia's fingers tightened around the tablet. You'd steal from your own sister? Serafina's eyes hardened. I'd do whatever it takes to keep it out of the wrong hands. Richard stepped forward. And who decides what hands are wrong? Serafina's gaze swept the room. Certainly not anyone in this cathedral. The tension crackled like a live wire. Serafina took another step towards Sophia. You have 24 hours to decide, little sister. After that, we stop talking. She turned on her heel and walked back toward the doors, her coat swirling around her legs. The moment she disappeared into the daylight, Sophia exhaled slowly. Every face in the room was turned toward her, waiting. She looked at the glowing names on the projector. Then she looked at the flash drive still in the tablet. Her voice was calm, but her pulse was a drumbeat. I think it's time to make my first move. The cathedral felt smaller now, the air thick with the weight of too many secrets and too many eyes. Sophia stood at the podium, her fingers still resting on Adrian's tablet. The names on the list glowed on the projector behind her, a silent reminder of the power she now held. Margaret stepped forward. Sophia, whatever you're thinking, stop. You don't have to play their game. Sophia turned her gaze to her mother. No, I don't. But if I walk away, someone else will play it for me, and they won't hesitate to use my name to do it. Richard's voice was firm. Then play it with me. I can shield you. Nathan's jaw tightened. Or let me teach you how to survive without needing anyone's shield. Victor's smirk was faint but confident. All of you are missing the point. She doesn't need to hide. She needs to strike first. Elias tilted his head, eyes sharp. Exactly. The first move sets the tone. The rest of the game follows. Sophia took a breath and turned to Adrian. I need your help. Tonight? Adrian arched an eyebrow. With what? She gave him a thin smile, delivering a message. That evening, Sophia was no longer in a wedding gown. She sat in the back of a sleek black car, wearing a tailored navy suit, her hair pulled into a clean knot. Olivia sat beside her, scrolling through her phone. Daniel drove, his eyes flicking to the rearview mirror every few minutes. "You're sure about this?" Daniel asked. Sophia's eyes stayed on the glowing skyline ahead. "I'm done reacting. It's time to make everyone else react to me," Olivia smirked. "I like the sound of that." They pulled up to the side entrance of the Grand Marlowe Hotel. Inside, the top floor was hosting a closed-door meeting of high-profile business and political figures. Several of those names were on the list. Adrian was already in the lobby when they arrived, phone in hand. "Security's tight, but I've greased the right palms. We have exactly 15 minutes. Sophia nodded. "That's all I need." The elevator ride to the top floor felt like an eternity. When the doors opened, they stepped into a private lounge buzzing with conversation. Expensive suits, glittering jewelry, and the subtle scent of power filled the air. Heads turned as Sophia walked in, flanked by Adrian and Olivia. Some recognized her from the scandal at the cathedral earlier that day. Whispers rose, but she didn't slow. At the center of the lounge was a polished mahogany table surrounded by 10 people, CEOs, senators, judges. Several of their names had been burned into her memory from the list. One of them, a silver-haired man in a navy pinstripe suit, stood as she approached. "Miss Lane, what an unexpected surprise." Sophia smiled politely. "I wanted to introduce myself properly, and to let you know that I'm aware of certain connections you had with my father." His expression flickered. "Your father?" "Alexander Voss," she said, letting the name settle over the table like a heavy blanket. The shift in the room was instant. Conversations died. Glasses stilled halfway to lips. Sophia continued, her voice calm but carrying. "I have something of his. Something with your names on it. And I thought it only fair to tell you that you have 72 hours to decide whether you want to be on my side or stay where you are." A woman at the far end of the table narrowed her eyes. "And what happens after 72 hours? Sophia's smile didn't reach her eyes. "After that, the list goes public." Gasps, murmurs, sharp glances exchanged. Adrian stepped forward, his presence reinforcing her words. "Consider this an opportunity. You all know what happens when a Voss makes a move." The silver-haired man's jaw tightened. "You're playing a dangerous game." Sophia's gaze didn't waver. "It's my game now." Back in the car, Olivia exhaled. That was intense. Daniel glanced in the mirror. "You just painted a target on your back the size of Texas." Sophia leaned back in her seat. "Good. Now they know where to aim." Later that night, Sophia returned to her apartment. The city lights glittered beyond the windows, but the air inside was heavy, expectant. She placed the flash drive back into its small velvet case and set it on the desk. Her phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. "Nice speech tonight, but you still don't understand the rules." Attached was a photograph. Serafina, standing in what looked like the same hotel lounge, speaking to several of the same people Sophia had just met. Sophia's jaw tightened. Another message followed. "You have 48 hours now." Sophia stared at the photograph on her phone, her pulse pounding in her ears. Serafina stood in the center of the Grand Marlowe Hotel lounge, speaking to the same power brokers Sophia had confronted only hours earlier. The people in the picture weren't just listening, they were leaning toward her, nodding, their body language radiating alliance. Olivia stepped out of the kitchen holding 2 mugs of coffee. "You look like you're about to break that phone in half." Sophia turned the screen toward her. Olivia's eyes widened. "Well, that didn't take long. She's moving in on your territory already." Daniel, sitting on the couch across from them, leaned forward. "She's telling them you're not ready, that you're reckless. She's offering them the same thing you did, but promising stability." Sophia set her coffee aside. "Then she's not just challenging me, she's trying to erase me before I even start." Adrian's voice came through the speakerphone. "Which means you have 2 options. Take her down quietly, or make it public and force everyone to pick a side." Sophia's gaze hardened. "I'm done with quiet." The next morning, headlines flooded the business networks. Voss heiress war brewing? 2 sisters, 1 empire. Sophia Lane versus Serafina Voss, the battle for the list. Sophia hadn't spoken to the press directly, but she hadn't denied the story either. The speculation was fuel, and she intended to burn it hot. She arranged a meeting at the rooftop garden of the Halcyon Tower, a neutral ground known for hosting negotiations too sensitive for boardrooms. When she arrived, Serafina was already there, wearing a cream blazer and a faint, knowing smile. "You work fast," Serafina said as Sophia approached. Sophia took the seat across from her. "So do you. I guess that runs in the family." A waiter brought coffee, but neither of them touched it. Sophia leaned forward. "You went to the same people I spoke to last night." "I did," Serafina replied without shame, "because they needed to hear a real plan, not just threats. You're trying to scare them into loyalty. I'm giving them a future they can trust." Sophia's voice was calm, but the steel underneath was clear. "You mean a future where you're in charge and I'm nothing?" Serafina didn't blink. "This isn't personal, Sophia. It's survival. Those names on the list? They've played this game for decades. You're new, you'll make mistakes, and mistakes will get you killed. Then maybe I'll just have to learn faster," Sophia said. Serafina's gaze sharpened. "You don't get a learning curve in this world. You get one chance, and if you fail, you don't get back up." For a moment they just looked at each other, two reflections of the same bloodline, each refusing to yield. Finally, Serafina spoke again, softer this time. "Give me the list. I'll keep you safe. You can walk away and live your life without a target on your back." Sophia leaned back in her chair. "That sounds a lot like surrender." "It sounds like survival," Serafina corrected. Sophia stood. "If I hand you the list, I might survive, but I'll have lost before the game even starts." Serafina sighed, almost regretful. "Then I guess we're enemies now." That evening, Sophia gathered Olivia, Daniel, and Adrian in her apartment. "She's making her move," Sophia said. "If she gets those people to pledge loyalty to her, the list is useless to me." Adrian nodded. "Then we have to flip them back, fast." Olivia grinned. "I have an idea. Let's show them something Serafina can't." Daniel raised an eyebrow. "Which is?" "A demonstration," Olivia said. "Not of power, of control. You invite them all to one place. You show them you can protect them better than anyone, including your sister." Sophia considered it. "If we do that, we need a venue that screams authority. Somewhere they'll feel the weight of choosing me." Adrian's lips curved. "I know just the place." 2 nights later, the Grand Orion Ballroom glittered under crystal chandeliers. Security was tight, the guest list tighter. The room was filled with the same high-level names that had been at the Marlowe meeting, and a few new faces drawn by the intrigue of 2 Voss heiresses vying for control. Sophia stepped onto the stage, dressed in a sleek black gown, the flash drive in her hand. Behind her, the list appeared on a massive LED screen. Not the names, just the title in bold red letters. "Some of you have heard my sister speak," Sophia began. "She's told you she can protect you, that she can lead you. But she's forgotten something important. Our father didn't build his empire by playing it safe. He built it by taking bold action, by knowing when to strike and when to shield." She let her gaze sweep the room. "I have the list. I have the leverage. And I have the will to use it. Stand with me, and you'll be under my protection. Stand against me." She let the pause hang in the air. "And you'll wish you hadn't." Murmurs spread through the crowd. Some nodded, others exchanged calculating glances. Then the ballroom doors slammed open. Serafina walked in, flanked by 2 men in dark suits. "My apologies for being late," she said, her voice carrying easily. "But I couldn't let my little sister have all the fun." The room tensed as she walked toward the stage, her heels striking the marble floor like a countdown. She stopped just a few feet from Sophia. "Shall we finish this here and now?" The Grand Orion Ballroom seemed to shrink as Serafina's presence filled it. The low murmur of conversation faded until the only sounds were the click of her heels and the faint hum of the chandeliers overhead. Sophia remained on the stage, her posture flawless, the flash drive still in her hand. She didn't move as Serafina climbed the steps to join her, the older woman's smile polished and cold. "You've gathered quite an audience," Serafina said, her voice smooth enough to mask the edge beneath. "Too bad they've been listening to the wrong sister." Sophia's tone was calm, but her eyes locked onto Serafina's. "They're here because they know the list is real, and because they know I have the courage to use it." Serafina tilted her head. "Courage or recklessness?" She turned to address the crowd. Our father didn't build his empire by waving secrets in people's faces. He built it by keeping those secrets close and using them quietly. Sophia wants to make you all afraid. I want to make you all rich." A ripple of murmurs moved through the crowd. Some heads nodded at her words. Sophia stepped forward. "Riches don't mean much if you're always looking over your shoulder. I'm not here to scare you. I'm here to make sure none of you ever have to fear being on someone else's list again." Adrian, standing near the edge of the stage, caught Sophia's eye and gave a subtle nod. It was time. Sophia pressed a button on a small remote. The LED screen behind her flickered, and several names from the list appeared. Not enough to give away its full contents, but enough to make the room draw a collective breath. "These," Sophia said, "are some of the people who thought they could play both sides. Some of them are here tonight." Her gaze swept the room. "If I wanted to, I could release the full list to the press in seconds. But I won't. Not if I know you stand with me." Serafina's eyes narrowed. "You're blackmailing them?" Sophia's smile was faint. "I'm giving them a choice." A man in the front row, a shipping magnate whose name had appeared on the screen, spoke up. "And if we choose you, what happens to Serafina?" Sophia didn't look away from her sister. "Then she becomes just another name on the list." Gasps echoed. Serafina's composure cracked for a fraction of a second before she turned back to the crowd. "You'd trust someone who threatens her own family?" Olivia's voice rang out from the side. "You'd be surprised what family does to each other when money's involved." The tension in the room was suffocating. Serafina took a slow step toward Sophia. "You think this is about who has the list? It's not. It's about who knows how to survive long enough to use it." Sophia's voice was quiet but carried. "Then, maybe it's time to see which one of us survives." At that moment, the ballroom doors burst open. Two men in dark tactical gear stormed in, weapons drawn, not guns, but sleek black devices shaped like pistols. One fired, and a net of electrified filaments shot across the room, hitting the LED screen. The image shattered into static. Screams broke out. People surged toward the exits. Adrian was at Sophia's side in an instant, pulling her back. "We need to go. Now." Victor appeared out of nowhere, grabbing her other arm. "No, this is your chance. Whoever sent them is here to take the list. If you run, you lose the game. If you stand your ground, you win." Serafina was already moving toward the side of the stage, signaling to her own security. One of the intruders shouted, "Hand over the drive, or we take it off your body." Sophia's grip on the flash drive tightened. Around her, chaos reigned. Security shouting, guests pushing toward the doors, the hum of the city beyond the glass walls. She met Serafina's gaze across the stage. In that split second, she saw it. The same calculation she was making. Both of them knew that whoever left this room with the list would decide the future of Alexander Voss's empire. Serafina mouthed two words, "Your move." Sophia took a deep breath, then turned to face the men in tactical gear. The tactical lights from the intruders' weapons cut sharp beams through the chaos, flashing over terrified faces and scattering shadows across the Grand Orion ballroom. Sophia stood on the stage, the flash drive clutched in her fist, her pulse pounding in her ears. Serafina had disappeared into the crowd, her two suited guards flanking her as she pushed toward a side exit. One of the intruders barked, "Hand it over," and took a step closer. The hum from his electrified weapon was a sharp, threatening buzz. Adrian's voice was low but urgent at Sophia's ear. "You give it to them, this ends. You keep it. You'd better have a way out." Victor's voice came from the other side. "Don't give it up. Not to them. Not to anyone." Sophia's gaze swept the panicked room. She could run. She could hide. She could hand over the drive and buy herself time. But she knew one thing with absolute certainty. If she gave it up now, she'd never get another chance to control her own fate. She stepped forward. "You want it," she said, her voice carrying over the noise. "Come and take it." The nearer intruder lunged. Sophia sidestepped, her years of self-defense training kicking in, and slammed her heel into his knee. He buckled, grunting in pain. The second one raised his weapon, but Daniel was there in an instant, tackling him to the ground. The weapon clattered across the marble floor. Olivia kicked it away, sliding it under the buffet table. The crowd surged harder toward the exits, security flooding in from the main entrance. The two attackers struggled, but within moments they were restrained, their hoods pulled back to reveal faces Sophia didn't recognize. Mercenaries, not loyal to any one faction. Sophia turned to the shaken crowd. This is what happens when no one knows who's in charge. Every shadow becomes a threat. Every door an opening for someone to take what's yours. I'm done letting other people decide my future, and you should be too. Her voice steadied, gaining power with each word. For years, you've been at the mercy of names on a list, afraid, controlled. I'm telling you now, the list doesn't control me, I control it. She held up the flash drive. Stand with me, and we don't just survive, we write the rules, we decide the game, and we win. A murmur of assent moved through the crowd. Not everyone, but enough. She could see it in their eyes, the shift from fear to consideration, from doubt to calculation. Victor stepped closer, smiling faintly. Congratulations, you've just claimed the throne. Serafina's voice came from the side of the stage. Don't get comfortable, little sister. Thrones are hard to keep. Sophia met her gaze. Then I guess we'll see which of us can hold on the longest. Serafina gave a single nod, then slipped out through the side exit, her guards in tow. Hours later, the ballroom was empty. Sophia stood alone at the stage's edge, the city lights glittering beyond the floor-to-ceiling windows. Margaret appeared behind her, placing a hand gently on her shoulder. You know they're all gonna come for you now. Not just Serafina. Everyone on that list. Sophia nodded. Good. Let them. I'm ready. Margaret's voice was soft but heavy with meaning. This life, it will change you. Sophia turned to her mother, her expression calm, almost serene. I'm not the same woman who walked into that cathedral, and I never will be again. Adrian joined them, leaning casually against the stage. So what's next, boss? Sophia looked out at the city again. We start making moves before they do. I want every name on that list analyzed, every weakness mapped, every ally courted, and I want Serafina watched. Olivia's voice chimed in from the doorway. And if she moves first? Sophia's lips curved into the faintest smile. Then we make sure her first move is her last. The next morning, Sophia stood before a wall of cameras at a press conference broadcast worldwide. Reporters shouted questions, flashes strobed against her face, but she didn't flinch. You all know what happened last night, she began. You've seen the rumors, heard the whispers. Here's the truth. I have a list. The list of the most powerful people in the world. And I'm not here to use it to destroy them unless I have to. I'm here to make sure that the days of fear and manipulation are over. She let the silence hang for a moment. I am not a pawn. I am not a victim. I am not here to be protected or controlled or silenced. I am the player, and I will decide how this game is played. The crowd erupted in shouts and camera flashes. Somewhere in the chaos, Sophia caught a glimpse of Serafina watching from the back, her expression unreadable. Sophia didn't look away, not this time. She had survived the betrayal, the cathedral, the war for the list, and now she wasn't just surviving, she was commanding. Because Sophia Lane was no longer running from the storm. She was the storm. The city was quiet in the early hours before dawn. From the penthouse of the Orion Tower, Sophia stood by the floor-to-ceiling windows, a glass of champagne untouched in her hand. The skyline glittered below, each light a reminder of the empire she now held in her grasp. Behind her, the flash drive rested on the desk, its metallic surface catching the faint glow of the moon. It was silent now, but she knew it was far from dormant. Her phone buzzed. A single, anonymous message. Congratulations, Phase 1 complete. No sender, no number, just the words. She turned, scanning the room, but found only her own reflection in the glass. Across the city, in the shadows of a dimly lit office, a figure sat in front of a wall of monitors. Each screen showed a different angle of Sophia's world, her meetings, her allies, her enemies. The figure swirled the amber liquid in their glass and smiled faintly. She's strong, the watcher murmured. Stronger than her father ever was, but strength can be broken. They typed a single line into a secure chat, initiate Phase 2. On the screen, a live feed zoomed in on Sophia standing by the window, unaware that the real game had only just begun.